Cormac, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure to be here, Michael.
Define for us the areas that you write about the most.
Predominantly boxing, specifically boxing in the GCC region. All of the massive events in Riyadh, I'll be there ringside, and also a lot of the grassroots organizations here in Dubai.
When you're approached by some Western publications to write about combat sports, I think you'll do combat sports, correct?
Yeah.
So UFC, MMA, boxing, wrestling, everything, or just not all of those?
Boxing. I have a deep interest in MMA. I just don't tend to write about it all that much.
Why?
Don't really have an outlet for it. I bounce between boxing news, the ring, and I cover sort of boxing more generally to outlets like Entrepreneur or Esquire. I've just never been asked to write about MMA, but it's something I would love to do in the future.
Are there MMA equivalents of you when it comes to covering what's going on in the GCC?
Not particularly, no.
So if there is somebody who's writing about it, they would be coming in from outside the region?
Yeah.
Because I think this is what brings something really interesting is your awareness. You live here, you work here, you're familiar with the region. And I think that this gets to one of the interesting questions that I have, which is if you were to look at the Western narrative about, say, boxing or combat sports in general in this part of the world, are they getting anything wrong?
They were getting it wrong, but the GCC countries have proved them wrong. You would have seen a lot of comments at the beginning of the Riyadh season events, sports washing, this sort of negative talking, not giving people a chance. But Saudis haven't really commented on that. It's demonstration over conversation with them. They've shown that they can put on these massive events. They've shown that they can give the public what they want. And I think any region should be able to, show a different side to them. Now, a lot of the people that were speaking negatively about these events previously, their bread and butter is commentating on these events, and they will go on their podcast or their shows, and this is content for them, and it sustains them. So you can't be hypocritical. But again, I would urge people to come here. I would urge them to come to Saudi Arabia, come to Dubai, see the hospitality of the people, see the caliber of the events, and to just, get involved.
So the men and women in the West, I think I would have first come across the idea of sports washing is when the Saudis started the Live Tour. And what always struck me as odd is as though you can have, various foreign or domestic policies that say whatever. But why can't you also be so many other things, right? And why can't you be heavily into golf and also, come from what is, traditionally seen as a conservative country? And in the West, it was as though they couldn't come to grips that you could be both.
Yeah. People should be allowed to show their complexity. There's much more to the GCC region than, just oil money or sort of tired stereotypes or narratives. But on the other side of that, I would say, can the Arabs not improve their image, or can they, why do they have to be limited in how we perceive them? They should be allowed to do different things. They've got the resources, they've got the vision. Let them do it.
I agree. The issue that I have, and I've been out here a while, you've been out here a while, the issue that I have, specifically with the collegies, people from the Gulf, and this is me not being in any important meetings, but if I could be, I would say you need to do a better job of developing people who are prepared to have nuanced conversation about the good, the bad, and the ugly of this part of the world, and to go on Western broadcast shows, right? Podcasts or Western news programs. And here, traditionally what happens is if there's a negative news story on the BBC, you won't get people in the Gulf responding. They just sort of ignore it, hope it goes away. And I think that because, especially here in Dubai, but also in Saudi, they're bringing more and more acts out, and it could be musical acts, it could be sporting competitions, that they also need to have people who are there sort of talking up, the good about this. And I know that it will happen sometimes with a commentator. Maybe they're being paid, maybe they're not, maybe they are genuine, maybe they're not. They'll do it, but you don't see enough of the Arab faces on the Western programs doing it.
Yeah.
And I wish that was one of the, if I could ever give them any advice, that would be the one piece of advice, like stand up and explain what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah. There's no need to bring so much Western help and support with your events. You've got so much talent and you're already delivering using your own local people. Be confident and go for it. The talent is there. And a specific example is Boxing Arabia. You've got Fadi Al-Tal and the guys there, Rakan, Tamim. They're doing a great job with their podcast, and they broadcast. They do play-by-play commentating for the DAZN Arabia, which is an international broadcaster. So there's a lot of things that they're doing right. They're getting there step by step, and they're growing it from within.
Are they? I'm curious. We can talk a little bit about, like, to me, there seems to be a bit of a concerted effort, a strategy, I would say, certainly with Abu Dhabi, and I think with Saudis as well, to lean into this. And of course, Abu Dhabi has purchased a stake in Dana White's UFC. And I guess my question is it being led by the governments and their strategy, what seems to be a strategy, or is it being led by a desire from the populace to see those competitions?
I think it's both. So in 2010, the UFC, for want of a better word, it was a bit uncivilized. It wasn't as regulated as it is now. In terms of presentation, the fighters didn't have sort of cohesive uniforms, etc. It was fringe. It was very much fringe. But to your point, the government were able to see past that, and they were able to see that this is something that is of the future. This is something that's going to catch on. So that is vision, that's strategic thinking. So they bought a 10% stake in 2010. Now look at the UFC. They just did a $8.8 billion deal with Paramount. It's one of the biggest brands out there currently. So again, that's both government and giving the people what they want.
If you were to rate from most popular to least popular, if you look at the combat sports, and I'm going to ask you to include wrestling there as well.
Yeah.
Is the UAE different from what's popular in Saudi, or is it pretty similar?
Different areas are getting reputations for specific disciplines. For example, you would see much more jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts in Abu Dhabi. You've got the ADCC Jiu-Jitsu, you have the Jiu-Jitsu Federation. So that's Abu Dhabi. And then you have the UFC appearing there. Whereas Dubai is much more grassroots boxing. You see the smaller organizations popping up here and there. And that's more of a Dubai thing. Whereas, in Saudi, specifically Riyadh in particular, they're just running the boxing business at the minute.
And then from a fan's point of view, because I know that Saudi has had some WWE stuff, or I guess what, WWF now. Maybe I'm
WWE, yeah.
WWE, sorry. So what is it that the fans want the most?
Saudi fans love a bit of wrestling. They love WWE. They always have. I'm not a wrestling expert, but I don't know what it is. I think it's just the sort of narratives. It's the over the topness. It's the spectacle. And there are some very famous A-list celebrities like the likes of John Cena, Cody Rhodes, that are really, really mainstream. I don't know. it seems to have struck a chord, particularly in Saudi, and they're doing big business now in Riyadh. They have a WWE convention center, fan experience, and also the first WrestleMania is taking place now in Riyadh next year. That's the first WrestleMania outside of the US. So, yeah, it's incredible business over there.
So the idea of, not the idea, the sport of boxing, and why do you think it has taken hold with this part of the world?
Boxing has taken a hold in all parts of the world. It's one of the oldest sports out there. If we go back to like the first Olympic Games in Greek times, right through to, you know, possibly gladiators in Rome, there's something about the spectacle of seeing two people fighting for a crowd. But more than that, there's something primordial about the ability to sort of physically best someone, to subdue them with your might and will, and that, you know, that transcends nationalities, that transcends countries. Everybody loves a good fight.
But it's only been in the last little while that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, from an outsider, because I don't think that I'm an avid follower of boxing. It seems to have become much more popular in the Gulf, I would say, in the last 5 or 8 years. Is that fair or no?
Yeah, 100%.
So what's happened there? Why?
I think boxing has somewhat stalled in the years before, say, 23. You know, the best fighters weren't fighting the best fighters. There's a lot of politics. The Saudis have been able to cut through a lot of the red tape. You know, they're working with all the promoters, Golden Boy, Matchroom, Queensberry. Everybody's sitting at the same table. Previously, these promoters, you know, they wouldn't have fought their fighters off against each other. They would have more measured, you know, difficulty levels for their fighters, staggered approaches. Now the best are just fighting the best. That's largely down to the vision of His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh.
So when the Saudis are hosting some of the big boxing events, they're trying to obviously give the people what they want. And they're also, I assume, paying massive purses.
Yeah, huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And I guess everybody's just buying into that, saying this is a wonderful opportunity to go bigger and better, yes?
Yeah.
Because I think that, you know, from when I'm reading stuff, you know, I come from Canada, when I read stuff back home, boxing doesn't seem to be as big back home as it feels like it is here.
Yeah.
Is that maybe different? Is it different in Europe?
Sorry, say that again, Michael.
No,
Sorry.
that's fine.
Yeah.
No, I just think that boxing traditionally boxing would be something that was very big in the States.
Yeah.
I don't think boxing is as big in the States now, unless you have like Jake Paul and Mike Tyson.
Yeah, that is changing. Last weekend, we just had a super fight, Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez, Mexican fighter, huge audience, huge fan base. And also you have, actually what the Americans have been missing is a great American fighter.
Yes.
Those two were put together live on Netflix. There's been a huge buzz about that. There's been big fight week feels to it, big promotion. You know, it's on in every house on Netflix across the world. And again, too, that's down to Turki Al-Sheikh, his vision. He's brought these guys together, not in the right weight classes, but not too far off. But he saw a gap there. And again, this is strategic thinking. How can we make boxing big in America again? To your point, it's been somewhat lacking in recent times.
Because I think that, and I'm going to generalize here when I say this, but I think in America, they're interested in that one big American in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
I don't know that they have an appreciation for some of the other weight classes and the science behind boxing. I think that there are, of course, aficionados, but I don't know if those, I mean, look at what Jake Paul and Mike Tyson does compared to, some of the others. And those are two big name brands.
Yeah, but this is down to, fighters maybe not promote themselves properly, taking sort of staggered opposition. Again, some of that politics that's kept American boxing behind, but it is starting to change. The right fights are being made. And to your point about, big fights in Europe, I was in Wembley Stadium. I saw the undisputed heavyweight championship fight between Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. That was massive. About 80,000 people there in attendance, everyone singing along. We had Crocker Donovan in Windsor Park Stadium in Ireland last weekend. You just got to put the right card together, but you've got to also generate the narrative. Why is this important? And again, what they did very well in America last week, two of the best fighters of their generations, undisputed championship, free to watch. Those are compelling details.
So I'm interested more in the local women because, again, trying to sort of counter some of the narratives that might take place in the West. It's a conservative region, women don't have the same rights as men, blah, 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 blah. We've heard that for so long. And yet, here we have combat sports, and we have Emirati women as well as Saudi women who are getting involved. So talk to me about some of the opportunities that, the collegiate women have to get into combat sports.
Yeah, I think it's important to address that narrative head on. It's not just in boxing, but our women in the GCC region are killing it across all sectors of life, business, sport, you name it. And they're enjoying every opportunity that they have now. A lot of women are getting into things like boxercise. I think it's very important to counter that narrative head on. Yeah. Women are killing it across all sectors, whether it's business, sport, you name it. People who come here see that. It's very visible. Women are CEOs, top level professionals across the board. Moreover, they have every opportunity in terms of, sporting. A lot of them like to do boxercise. A lot of them taking, private classes. Mm-hmm. A lot of them training in MMA gyms, 971 in Dubai, TK MMA in Dubai. Here, women are getting stuck in, and there's no real barriers to entry. Specific examples of that would be Hatan Al Saif, who's a PFL fighter. She's killing it in the PFL MENA at the minute. And then you've got Sarah Al Shahrani. She's the first Saudi female boxer. These women are making big strides, and they're laying a blueprint for others to follow. And you're going to see more and more of that in time. From these grassroots organizations, a lot of women are coming up. They're seeing the possibilities, the potential, and you're going to hear about them very, very soon.
When we talk about combat sports, and correct me if I'm wrong, the perception seems to me to be that in the West, there are more women gravitating towards like MMA, UFC type fighting mm-hmm. rather than boxing. Would you agree with that or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about here? Because here, where I used to work at a legacy media company, we would profile MMA, UFC type fighters who were women, but I don't remember us ever profiling women who boxed.
Yeah. I think too, due to MMA being mixed martial arts, it offers more opportunities for entry. For example, women are very skilled in jiu-jitsu. Some might be skilled in wrestling. Some might be good striking. So with a variety of skill sets, it creates more opportunity. And possibly that's why you've got more women doing it.
Right. I would also imagine that if you're starting out, you might not have the punching power to just be able to throw punches, whereas with some of the other, you have, you can do grappling as well as, the punching, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so when it comes to some of the promoters and some of the fighters, I'm thinking specifically about advice that you might give to them if they're interested in coming out to this part of the world to work with, the Emiratis or the Saudis?
There's a few things. You've got to make people care. You've got to hammer home the stakes of a fight. You've got to have a competitive fight. Nobody wants to see somebody just kind of go in as the favourite and steamroll the opposition. You've got to build competitive fights. You've also got to promote it. You've got to get the fighters talking. You've got to get them using social media strategically. Behind the scenes, a day in the life, this sort of thing. You've got to grab people's attention and just get them interested.
Are there any regional fighters, collegiate fighters in particular, from the UAE or from Saudi, who are boxers who are ready to take that next step?
Yeah, Sultan Al Nuaimi, he's made a lot of good progress on the sort of regional grassroots scene. Super flyweight fighter, lighter weight class. I'd like to see him on one of these Riyadh season cards, and give him an opportunity to shine on a big level. He's got a lot of grit and resilience. I think fans would love to see somebody like that.
Do you think that it's the idea of combat sports and boxing in particular, do you think it's starting to take hold with the younger generation in this part of the world? And the reason I say that, I ask it like that, is because I think that we see so many Emiratis, for instance, this is where we live, so we'll talk about them. They'll watch European football, and they have their own league, but there doesn't seem to be the same interest in that, at least not with the younger generation. So I'm wondering, is the younger generation getting into combat sports and boxing?
A lot of the Emiratis, their idols are the likes of Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev. These are fighters who share a lot of cultural similarities, the same religion, a lot of the same values, and they emulate these guys. They see these guys and they want to be like them. So a lot of them are of the TikTok generation too. They see these guys with the submissions, with the knockouts, and again too, they want to go to the gym and practice that and have a lot of fun with it.
So do you think, though, that it is taking hold with...
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Even within the last 5 years, it's taken off immeasurably. It's now become a foundational pathway. A lot of kids getting into it from a younger age.
From your experience, I'll ask this question because I think you would know. Are schools doing anything to introduce, students to this type of physical activity?
I would imagine that schools are running extracurricular activities, maybe like boxing, fitness, and that could be more like endurance, cardiovascular, of how to prepare for a boxing fight. Unsure how, kind of hand-to-hand combat works in schools.
Cormac, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate this.
My pleasure to be here, Michael.